clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Take a nice deep breath in, and on the out breath, that's it, relax those eyelids and close your eyes. And as you breathe in, I want you to imagine you're breathing in a sensation of feeling of calm and relaxation. Breathing in that feeling of calm and relaxation, and as you breathe out, just imagine you're releasing any tension. Breathing in that feeling of relaxation and releasing that tension. And I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine a color that represents relaxation to you. So much so that as you breathe in, you can imagine breathing in that color of relaxation, allowing it to fill your lungs. And as you breathe out, just imagine that what leaves is a darker color, taking any tension, stress, or anxiety with it. I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine that you're somewhere else. Imagine that you're in warm countryside, perhaps in southern Spain. Imagine that you're out there in the countryside, green rolling hills. I want you to imagine that you're surrounded by sheep. Imagine you're in the countryside, noticing the movements of the sheep, feeling peace, calm, and tranquility. And I want you to imagine that somewhere in this rolling countryside is an old ruined church, something that was probably magnificent many, many years ago, but now has fallen in ruins. And you have an idea of just how old this building is, because a tree is actually growing from the inside of the ruins, and it goes up so high that the actual crown of the tree is where the roof of the church probably was maybe 100 years ago. And I want you to imagine that that would be an ideal place to relax and have a nap. I want you to make yourself comfortable at the foot of that tree, surrounded by this old ancient church. And as you breathe in that feeling of relaxation and release that tension, I want you to imagine that you're having a dream. And the interesting thing about dreams is that you can be anywhere and go anywhere. And I want you to imagine that in this dream, you're finding yourself at the foot of the Great Pyramids of Giza. You can see just the enormity of these pyramids. It feels hot, almost like you're in a desert. And somewhere nearby, you could imagine digging a hole. And in that hole is an old, ancient chest. You could imagine inside that chest is gold coins, precious jewels, gems, riches beyond your imagination. Imagine that dream so vividly that it feels that that treasure was yours, and for that moment, you can do anything and everything that you would want. I want you to imagine that you wake up out of that dream, still finding yourself there in that ruined church, noticing that the sheep are still around you. And you can't shake off that idea of finding treasure. And it gives you almost a feeling of being unsettled. You can't help but compare yourself to the sheep. That now this idea of pursuing this dream of treasure gives you with a feeling of how different you are from this flock of sheep that surround you. You can't help but wonder how content they are, just with shelter, water, food. They have no desires, they have no ambitions. It also occurs to you that you have the ability to have their life in your hands, and yet the sheep still follow you wherever you go anyway. I want you to imagine that now you are walking with your sheep down old roads to a city at the south of Spain. And imagine that journey may take several days. You're walking towards a city at the south of Spain called Tarifa. And you're there for a specific reason. You have a grand plan, something that you want to achieve. And also you need to have your sheep sheared and do something important there. But I want you to imagine that in this place, you actually encounter a wise man. This wise man is clearly dressed in fabrics and materials that imply he has great wealth. Now at this point, you don't know if he is a trader or perhaps even a king. But this person is there for you to learn a lesson. A key lesson about what it means to pursue your dreams. And at this point, I want you to really connect with what that dream is for you. Sometimes these dreams come to us when we're a child. Sometimes we pay attention. And sometimes we allow that dream just to be a fleeting thought and almost forget we've even had that idea. And as you reconnect with that old thought, that old dream, or perhaps something more new, maybe that's come to you in the last few months or even year, something that would represent the pursuit of a dream for you, I want you to locate where in your body you feel that sensation, almost like a pull, a desire to pursue that dream. I want you to imagine that this king of Salem is giving you a ball of energy. Now this can be whatever you imagine it to be, maybe a glowing ball of white light. But I want you to imagine that you are taking this gift from this king and absorbing this energy, this resource into you. And I want you to notice that this is giving you everything that you need to be able to pursue your dream. You have infinite resources now to pursue that dream, and I want you to get a sense of what it would be like to actually pursue your dream. Perhaps you make an image or a movie inside your mind's eye, and just imagine what it would be like to have the pursuit of that dream. I want you to imagine now that you are in the grand house of the King of Salem. And I want you to imagine that he gives you a spoon with 2 drops of oil on that spoon. He asks you to go around this grand house in this city of Tarifa, but not to allow any of the drops to spill. You return some time later and you look at the spoon, and indeed those 2 drops are still there on the spoon. And the king asks, "What did you think of those grand gardens that it took the gardener years to craft? What did you make of his impressive tapestries that he'd collated and collected from grand cities from all around the world? What did you make of his architecture, his furniture, his paintings?" And it occurs to you that all that time you'd been completely focused on the drops of oil on that spoon. He asks you the question, how can you really trust and understand a man if you don't know his home? He asks you to go away and really appreciate everything that this grand home has to offer. And indeed you do. You're impressed with the gardens, the tapestries, the art, the architecture, the grand furniture. And as you return to share your admiration with the king, it occurs to you that the oil is no longer on the spoon. The king explains that there may be a lesson for you to learn while pursuing your dream. That it isn't enough to pursue that dream so obsessively that you don't enjoy the wonders on the way. But equally, if you were to get distracted by all the different things that you see on that journey, you may never actually take care of what is essential to make that dream a reality. You say goodbye to the king, and at this point are committed to pursue your dream. And now I wonder what it would be like for you to find yourself on a boat, traveling over the seas to a new continent towards Africa. I want you to imagine that you arrive in a port, a busy town with markets and people speaking a language that you don't know. I want you to imagine that right now, in this place, with all these smells and sounds and people, perhaps in a busy market, I want you to imagine that you have whatever you feel is the most important resource that will enable you to achieve your dream. And I don't know if that resource for you right now will be money, whether it will be enthusiasm, your determination, your youth. But I want you to really reflect on what quality you feel you have in most abundance that will enable your personal legend, your dream to come true. And I want you to imagine that you meet someone. You meet someone that understands your language in this busy place full of strangers and words that you have no idea of the meaning. And this person seems friendly, and in your own language explains and understands what it means to you for you to pursue your dream. And, more importantly, they know how to help you achieve your dream. All they need is whatever that resource that you have in most abundance. They need that in order to help you achieve your dreams. And I want you to imagine giving them that resource, whatever it means to you, whatever's most important, the most essential ingredient that will enable you to achieve and pursue your dreams. Imagine giving it away to a friendly stranger. And then notice that in this busy market, something catches your eye. Maybe a shiny dagger or a sword. You can't help but admire the beauty of this incredible thing. And you have an unsettled feeling right there in the pit of your stomach, your gut. Something that tells you that this friend won't be returning. And that thing that you have that's most essential to help you achieve your dream is lost. And I want you to really locate that feeling of betrayal deep within you. And maybe it's a sensation that you felt before, or maybe this is a new feeling that you're feeling for the first time, but really locate where that feeling of betrayal is, that feeling of loss is. And I want you to accept an idea that even though you may have been the victim of a circumstance beyond your control, a betrayal by someone you trusted, misfortune from things that you didn't do because of you but just happened to you. But I want you to accept an idea to be true, that no matter what has happened to you, you and only you can decide to no longer pursue your dream. And I want you to imagine your own dream, again now, your own personal legend. And I want you to imagine what it would be like to actually give up on that and no longer pursue it, to live a life where you no longer pursue that dream. And notice that that does not give you an exciting feeling, but something more close to emptiness or sadness. I want you to imagine that as time goes on, your objective changes. Rather than to pursue your dream, your new goal is simply to return home. Home to a life of comfort, home to something that you've experienced before, something that is safe and easy, that doesn't risk failure or rejection or ridicule, something safe. But in order to do that, I want you to imagine that you have to earn enough money to return home, but you still don't know the language. And there are no jobs in this place. And I want you to imagine that you walk past an impressive crystal shop. Although you admire the beauty of the crystal, glasses, jugs, all different things made of crystal in the window and in the shop, you notice that they're dusty and dirty. I want you to imagine going in and trying to explain to the merchant, the owner of the crystal shop, that you're able to help. But clearly, they don't understand your language. And I want you to get a sense of creativity, that simply by doing something helpful feels like it's the right thing to do. And I want you to imagine that you just decide to clean some of these crystals on the shelf completely unprompted. And as you do so, you get a sense of satisfaction, pride from doing a job well done. And it's almost like the universe conspires to help you, because at that very moment, two strangers enter the crystal shop and buy the very things that you've just cleaned. And at that point, the merchant, the crystal shop owner, gives you some coins as an expression of gratitude for what you've done, and almost interprets what you've done as a good omen, something positive. You are offered a job. And at some point the merchant asks you what it is that you want. And at that point, imagine telling a story that you're trying to convince yourself that all you want to do is really just return home. Imagine telling a story where you're actually explaining that you want something much less than what you truly dream. And as you explain it to someone else, it doesn't feel exciting or motivating in any way. Imagine that you keep working in this place for many weeks, many months. You learn the language. You get used to taking pride in what you do. And I want you to imagine that you notice a hill with impressive views of the city and the surrounding areas. I want you to imagine that you have a creative idea, an idea to serve tea at the top of this hill. And I want you to locate where that feeling of creativity comes within you. Inspiration, creativity, is the ability to take something of average value and turn it into so much more. People had always drunk tea, and occasionally people would buy crystal. But in this area, rarely was teas served in this fine crystal, in this location. And simply by adding 2 or 3 unrelated things in a new way created so much more value for everyone. You liked seeing an idea turn into reality. The customers enjoyed this new experience they hadn't experienced before, and the merchant enjoyed the additional money he was making. He was making so much money from selling these teas in crystal with this impressive view that he was able to pursue his own dream, and yet decided never to do that through fear of disappointment. There is a point at which the merchant gives you all the money that you would need to return home to a safe, easy life. And I want you to imagine that in this point you feel at a crossroads. You could do what is easy and what is safe, but there is a part deep within you that has this desire to pursue something that is your calling, your purpose, a dream. And even though the safe and sensible thing to do would be to return home, you want to pursue that idea of what that dream is, almost like it is written. I want you to imagine that you say goodbye to the merchant and start making progress towards the Great Pyramids of Giza. I want you to imagine that you're in the desert, and in the desert you meet an Englishman. Now you may be on camels or you may be walking, but I want you to imagine that the Englishman explains 2 principles to you that change how you think about the world. And the first principle he talks about is the Elixir of Life. That some people believe there is a liquid, an elixir, that gives the gift of immortality. But I want you to imagine what it would be like. What it would be like to live forever. If by living forever, you were living a mundane life. A life of compromise, of settling, of living a life where you're no longer pursuing your dream. And rather than filling you with excitement, the idea of living forever, it actually feels like a tragedy or a curse. It occurs to you that it's not the length of time that you live, but how you live. It occurs to you that a short life where you get to pursue the things that are of most importance, to pursue your own legend, your own dream, your own story, is of more importance than just living an incredibly long but mundane life of compromise and being settled. That gives fuel to your fire to pursue your own purpose, your own dream. And the Englishman explains a second principle. that he calls the Philosopher's Stone, that the alchemists believe there is a particular stone that can be the catalyst to enable metals of very low value, such as lead, to be transformed into precious metals such as gold. I want you to think back to the way in which you are able to take unrelated things in the crystal shop to turn simple things into something of value. And I want it to occur to you that the real Philosopher's Stone is actually your ability to creatively solve problems. I want you to think that the Philosopher's Stone is something within you. And I want you to think that because this exists, you have the ability to create infinite gold and value and treasure in your own life, because your own creativity can take completely unrelated elements of skill, experience, knowledge, but when fused together in a new and creative way, can create incredible value for you and everyone around you. I want you to accept that the real elixir of life is the enthusiasm and vitality that comes from pursuing a dream, and that the real Philosopher's Stone is your intuitive creativity and ability to come up with new ideas that the world simply hasn't seen in the way that you've created them. I want you to imagine that time goes on and you process these ideas. And then later, I want you to imagine that you arrive at an oasis town, not too far from the Great Pyramids of Giza. And this town is all the more impressive because you've spent so long in the desert. And yet this town seems to have life spring from nowhere. There are trees, there are fountains. In this place, this is a place of beauty and abundance. And it occurs to you that even in the harshest of deserts, there is still the ability to have abundance and beauty. I want you to imagine that in this place, while getting water from a fountain, near that fountain, I want you to create an idea of what it would be like to meet the love of your life, someone that is the most beautiful person that can connect with you that has ever existed. And I want you to imagine that you can connect with them and feel that connection deep within you. And I want you to locate that feeling within you right now. And as you do so, I want you to get a feeling that this is something that has meant to happen and is happening now. But I also want you to appreciate that this particular person you know is right for you because they are very encouraging and supportive of your dream. In fact, they insist that if they are meant to be the right person for you, that they should insist that you pursue that dream. That's right. I want you to imagine giving that person a hug, feeling that closeness, that connection, and then going on to pursue your dream. And I want you to imagine that very soon you're going to meet someone that calls themselves the Alchemist. A wise old man that seems even wiser than the King of Salem. That they have resources, knowledge, experience, everything that you would need to be able to pursue your dream. And I want you to imagine that while with the Alchemist, taking that knowledge, that insight, that experience, I want you to imagine feeling those additional resources are transferring from them to you. That somehow you're becoming wiser, more confident, more determined. Imagine what it feels like to have these resources. And then I want you to imagine that not too long in the future, you run into a challenge, adversity, something that can risk your very life and everything that you've worked so hard to achieve. And I want you to imagine that in order to deal with this, there is a need to transform from one thing to another. I want you to imagine that, metaphorically speaking, it may be useful to think of yourself as transforming from an individual, perhaps to something as sand in the wind. And I want you to imagine, as you imagine turning from yourself as a human into just wind in the sand, that the true meaning that you get from this is way more important. That sometimes adversity, challenge, setbacks is exactly what we need in order to evolve, transform, and change. That without challenge and adversity, there is no requirement to become better and more competent and more able. That perhaps the true meaning of alchemy is not turning lead into gold, but turning yourself from one thing into another. And I want you to realize that in your past, every major form of adversity that you've experienced has given you the opportunity to learn new things, to become stronger, to become more determined. Or you will also know many people that when major challenges and adversity faced them, it was the very story needed for them to decide to no longer pursue their dreams. As you reflect on those two different options, I want your unconscious to make a decision that you will interpret adversities and challenges from the past as an opportunity for reflection, an opportunity to learn new lessons. And I also want you to think that any challenges and adversity in the future is also an opportunity for you to evolve and grow and change. That's right. And I want you to imagine now. Imagine that you've faced that adversity and come out stronger than you ever were before. And I want you to imagine that it occurs to you that even if you get to the pyramids, there will be no clear idea for sure where the treasure is. I want you to imagine that there is a mystical woman, perhaps a gypsy, that you meet. And I want you to imagine agreeing, in exchange for her help, that she will get a share of that treasure. Even though it's just a dream, and many people wouldn't believe or buy into that dream, notice that she does. And I want you to think about, in your own life, who are the people that really support you and believe in your dream? There are many people that don't. So those that do are important people in your life. I want you to imagine now that as the days go on, you're now getting closer to the pyramids. I want you to, as you get closer, to realize that where your tears fall is exactly the right place to dig for that treasure. And digging you will. You have everything you need to dig for that treasure. And you do, and you dig deep. And as you do so, you are tired and exhausted, and you reflect on the journey that you've gone through to get to this point where you're in touching distance to untold riches. And I want you to imagine what it would be like to be so close to achieving your dream. And then imagine you're there at the desert, seeing those grand pyramids in front of you, digging, sweating, covered in sand, digging this deep hole. And then suddenly you're surrounded by what look like perhaps refugees or people that maybe are there to steal from you. And as you dig, they stop you. They stop you and they steal whatever you have on your possession. Whatever money or gold or possessions you have left. And as they take everything of value to you, one of them casually says how they had a dream one day of finding treasure in an old ruined church under a tree. I want you to imagine you start laughing and they just assume you're crazy and go away. It occurs to you that perhaps the journey wasn't required for you to pursue your own treasure. Maybe the journey was giving you a different treasure in terms of the ability to know what's really important, develop these new qualities, characteristics, friendships and connections. Maybe the whole point was not the pursuit of the treasure, but the treasure that you encountered from the pursuit itself. I want you to imagine that whatever needed to happen has happened and you found yourself back home, back there in the rolling countryside of southern Spain. And there you are, in that ruined church where you'd had that nap so many months or years ago. And as you dig, I want you to imagine that you find an ancient wooden chest full of shiny gold coins, precious jewels, riches beyond your wildest imagination. I want you to reflect on the fact that you wouldn't have achieved all of this treasure had it not been for you to be willing to pursue what mattered most to you, to pay attention to what the world was communicating through signs and omens, but also to trust in yourself, to take the action, to make the sacrifices and take the risks, and pursue anyway, to deal with adversity rather than hide from it. And as you reflect on this journey that you've gone through, I want you to imagine what it would be like to actually experience your treasure. Who are the people that you would have needed to be grateful for? What lessons would you have learnt on the way? I want you to really think about those people that you wouldn't have been able to achieve this dream without. What resources do you need to achieve this particular dream? Are there people that you need to know that you don't know yet? Are there skills that you need to learn that you haven't learnt yet? Are there things that you will need to make your own dream a reality? I want you to get a sense that when you really truly decide to pursue your dream, I want you to imagine that the universe will conspire to help you, and that you have all of the resources necessary for you to pursue that dream, to make progress. You have it all within you. and that you will repay those that have helped you on your journey. In a few moments' time, I'm going to count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. But you will awaken with the ability to trust your own judgment and intuition. You will awaken with all of the resources necessary for you to pursue your own dream. You will awaken with a deep appreciation that there are lessons to be learned, and that the true elixir of life is to know that the energy and vitality that comes from pursuing something important is way more important than the length of life that you live. That the true Philosopher's Stone is your ability to create value from nothing. That in your own life you can turn any lead, physical or emotional, into gold. And that you have the ability to evolve yourself at any opportunity when facing challenges or adversity. You will awaken with this deep insight and all the resources necessary for you to pursue and stay determined to follow your own personal legend and dream. You will awaken full of energy, optimism, with a deep desire and determination to pursue that dream. Starting to count to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.